I, Solon Chronicler, of the Duchess Valara's tragic reign, now set down these words as a warning to all who would follow. The year was 2374, in the waning days of the Celestial Lake Federation's golden age, when ambition and pride led to consequences that echo still across the stars. The Duchy of Solara had stood for 8 centuries under the rule of noble houses, their bloodlines tracing back to the first colonists who terraformed this crystalline world at the galaxy's edge. The capital city of Solaris gleamed beneath twin suns, its spires reaching toward heavens that had once seemed limitless. But beneath the polished marble and flowing banners, the ancient order crumbled like sand through an hourglass. Duchess Valara Astron, descendant of the Third House, had nursed her ambitions in the shadow of the Grand Assembly. The Council of Noble Houses had grown complacent, their debates endless, while crucial decisions languished in bureaucratic limbo. Valara saw opportunity where others saw stability, and her violet eyes burned with the fire of one who would reshape the world to her vision. I came to the capital that autumn, as a historian, commissioned to document what Valara termed the coming transformation. She had read my previous works on military campaigns across the Outer Rim, and believed I might capture the glory she expected to win. How naive we both were. The first whispers of Earth mercenaries reached the court during the Festival of Stars, when ambassadors from distant worlds gathered to renew treaties and trade agreements. A man named Mikhail, claiming to represent Earth's Expeditionary Corps, appeared at court with credentials that seemed authentic enough. He spoke softly, with the measured cadence of a diplomat, but there was steel beneath his polished words. "Your Grace," he said to Valara during a private audience I was permitted to observe, "we understand your situation. The noble houses resist progress, clinging to traditions that no longer serve the people's needs. Earth has dealt with similar transitions before." Valara leaned forward in her crystal throne, intrigued. "And what does Earth offer Ambassador Mikhail?" "Military advisors, elite soldiers trained in the most advanced warfare techniques, men and women who have fought on 100 worlds and never known defeat." His smile was slight but predatory. "For a reasonable compensation, of course." The compensation, as detailed in documents I would later examine, seemed modest enough. Payment in rare minerals, technological exchanges, and what the contract termed consideration for post-conflict arrangements. Valara's advisors reviewed the terms and found them acceptable. None of us understood what post-conflict arrangements truly meant. Within 2 months, the first transport ships descended through Solaris's crystalline atmosphere. The Earth mercenaries who emerged were unlike any soldiers we had seen. They moved with mechanical precision, their enhanced physiques evident even beneath their advanced armor. Each carried weapons that hummed with barely contained energy, and their eyes held the cold calculation of professional killers. Colonel Armin of the Ducal Guard watched the mercenaries deploy with growing unease. A career soldier who had served Solara faithfully for 3 decades, he possessed the instincts of a man who recognized danger when he saw it. "Your Grace," he said to Valara after the initial briefing, "these soldiers, they're formidable certainly, but they show no deference to our customs, no respect for our chain of command. They take orders only from their own officers." Valara dismissed his concerns with a wave of her jeweled hand. "They're professionals, Colonel. I don't need them to bow and scrape. I need them to win." The first engagement came sooner than expected. The noble assembly, learning of Valara's military buildup, moved to censure her and strip away her hereditary lands. When their enforcers arrived at the palace gates, they found Earth mercenaries waiting for them. The battle lasted less than an hour. I watched from the palace ramparts as energy weapons traced deadly arcs through the morning air. The noble house's guards, trained in traditional combat with laser rifles and plasma swords, stood no chance against the mercenaries' coordinated assault. Earth soldiers advanced with mechanical precision, their movements coordinated by some invisible network that allowed them to function as a single, lethal organism. Captain Sarah Torres, the mercenary field commander, spoke with Valara after the victory. Her accent carried the crisp consonants of Earth's northern territories, and her augmented left eye glowed with data streams as she delivered her report. Resistance neutralized your grace. Casualties minimal on our side. The surviving nobles have withdrawn to their estates, but they'll regroup within days. I recommend we press our advantage. Valara's excitement was palpable. Excellent. How quickly can your forces move on the assembly hall? Give us 6 hours to resupply, Torres replied. But there's something you should know. My superiors on Earth are very pleased with our progress. They're sending additional units to ensure your complete success. The additional units arrived within the week, along with Ambassador Mikhail and a team of what he termed political advisors. The number of Earth personnel on Solaris now exceeded 3,000 more than double what the original contract specified. When Colonel Armin raised this concern, Valara waved it aside. Numbers matter less than results, she said. The Assembly's resistance is crumbling. Soon, all of Solara will acknowledge my authority. But I noticed changes in the palace routine. Earth soldiers now stood guard at key positions, previously held by ducal troops. The mercenaries had established their own communication networks, their own supply lines, their own command structure that operated parallel to Solaris's military hierarchy. Dr. Elena Vasquez, the Earth Expedition's medical officer, worked to enhance Valara's soldiers with combat stimulants and genetic modifications. Standard procedure, she explained when I inquired. We need your forces to match our capabilities for effective coordination. The noble houses made their last stand 3 months later. They had gathered what remained of their scattered forces and hired off-world mercenaries of their own, creating a coalition army that marched on Solaris under the banner of the Old Order. The battle would determine whether tradition or transformation would rule Solara's future. Duchess Valara stood on the palace balcony as the opposing armies met on the Crimson Plain, so named for the red crystal formations that dotted the landscape. She wore ceremonial armor, crafted by Solaris's finest smiths, its silver surface reflecting the double sunrise that painted the sky in shades of gold and amber. Today, we remake history, she declared to the gathered court. Today, we claim our destiny. The battle unfolded like a dance of death across the plain. The noble coalition fought bravely, their colorful banners streaming in the wind as they charged the Earth positions. But courage alone could not overcome superior firepower and tactical coordination. One by one, the ancient house standards fell. In the aftermath of victory, I found myself documenting what should have been Valara's moment of triumph. She stood amid the wreckage of the old order, her armor stained with the dust of battle, and for the first time since I had known her, uncertainty flickered in her violet eyes. Captain Torres approached with a datapad in her hands. Your Grace Ambassador Mikhail wishes to speak with you. There are matters to discuss regarding our contract. Mikhail appeared within the hour, his diplomatic smile wider than usual. Behind him came a dozen Earth soldiers in dress uniforms, their weapons ceremonial, but no less deadly. The palace throne room, which had hosted the rulers of Solara for 8 centuries, suddenly felt smaller, more confined. Congratulations, Your Grace, Mikhail said, his voice carrying across the vaulted chamber. You have achieved what you set out to do. The noble houses are broken, their armies scattered. Solara is yours to command. Valara nodded, but something in his tone made her wary. And Earth's forces will now withdraw as specified in our agreement. Ah, well, that brings us to the matter of compensation. Mikhail's smile never wavered. You see, the contract specifies payment in rare minerals and technological exchanges. But I'm afraid Solara's mineral wealth has been depleted by the recent conflicts. And your technology, while charming, is several centuries behind Earth's current standards. Then what compensation do you seek? Valara's voice carried the edge of steel. The contract also mentions consideration for post-conflict arrangements. We interpret this as a right to participate in Solara's governance moving forward. A transition from autocracy to a parliamentary system would be beneficial for all parties involved. The implication hung in the air, like a blade suspended over Valara's throne. I watched as understanding dawned in her eyes, followed quickly by rage, and then most disturbing of all, fear. "You want me to relinquish power?" she asked. "Not relinquish," Mikhail corrected gently. "Share. The Parliament would naturally look to you for guidance as the architect of Solara's liberation from the old ways. But Earth requires certain guarantees of stability. Our forces would remain to assist with the transition, ensuring peace and order during this delicate period." Colonel Armin, who had remained silent during the exchange, finally spoke. "This is preposterous. You're demanding that Solara become an Earth protectorate in exchange for services already rendered. The contract says nothing about—" "The contract," Mikhail interrupted, his diplomatic mask slipping slightly, "was quite clear about post-conflict arrangements. Earth's legal department has reviewed the language extensively. I'm afraid you'll find our interpretation will hold up under any legal scrutiny." Valara stood abruptly, her hand moving toward the ceremonial sword at her side. Instantly, the Earth soldiers behind Mikhail shifted subtle movements that nonetheless conveyed deadly intent. She froze her eyes, darting between the mercenaries and her own guards, who were outnumbered 3-1 in the throne room. "You planned this from the beginning," she said, her voice barely above a whisper. "We planned for various contingencies," Mikhail replied. "Though I must say you've made the process remarkably smooth. Your ambition was helpful in eliminating political opposition." The palace erupted into chaos. Valara's guards moved to defend their duchess, but Earth soldiers throughout the building had been waiting for this moment. Energy weapons discharged with crackling fury, filling the ancient halls with smoke and the acrid smell of plasma discharge. I found myself pressed against a pillar, my chronicler's tools clutched to my chest as the battle raged around me. Captain Torres moved through the melee with surgical precision, her enhanced reflexes allowing her to evade return fire while directing her troops with hand signals. The fighting ended as quickly as it had begun. Earth soldiers controlled every entrance and exit, their positions carefully prepared during the months of cooperation. Valara knelt beside Colonel Armin's fallen form, her ceremonial armor now truly stained with blood. "The transition will begin immediately," Mikhail announced to the silence that followed. "A provisional parliament will be established with representatives chosen through appropriate channels. Duchess Valara will be permitted to retain her title and her personal estates, provided she cooperates fully with the new governmental structure." Valara raised her head, and I saw in her eyes the terrible understanding of one who has been completely outmaneuvered. "There is a reason," she said, her voice carrying clearly through the throne room, "never to hire human mercenaries." "Indeed," Mikhail agreed. "The same reason one should always read contracts more carefully. Earth values its partnerships, Your Grace, but we protect our investments." The weeks that followed were a blur of political theater. The Provisional Parliament convened with members selected from Earth's vast database of colonial administrators and local collaborators willing to embrace the new order. Valara attended sessions as required, her presence lending legitimacy to proceedings that were anything but legitimate. I was permitted to remain in the palace as an official chronicler of the democratic transition. My previous works apparently qualifying me to document Earth's version of events. But my true purpose had changed. Instead of recording Valara's glorious transformation of Solara, I found myself documenting the death of a civilization's independence. Dr. Vasquez approached me one evening, as I worked in the palace library reviewing historical documents that would soon be recontextualized for the new era. "Solon," she said, using the informal address that Earth personnel favored, "you understand what's happening here, don't you?" "I understand that power has changed hands," I replied carefully. "It's more than that. We've been studying colonial integration for centuries. The key is making the transition seem natural, inevitable. Valara's ambition provided the perfect catalyst. Without the noble houses as opposition, resistance to Earth governance would be fragmented, ineffective. And Valara, what becomes of her?" Dr. Vasquez shrugged. She'll adapt or she won't. Earth has protocols for both scenarios. Duchess Valara's final act of defiance came during what was to be the inaugural session of the democratically elected Solaran Parliament. She had been granted the honorary position of Duchess Emeritus, a title with ceremonial duties, but no actual authority. As Mikhail prepared to address the assembly about Solara's bright future as an Earth protectorate, Valara stood. Her violet eyes, which had once burned with ambition, now held a different fire entirely. "Citizens of Solara," she said, her voice carrying to every corner of the chamber. "I stand before you as one who sought to break the chains of the past and instead forged new ones for the future. I hired these mercenaries to secure our freedom, only to discover that freedom cannot be purchased with someone else's strength." The Earth soldiers in the chamber moved closer, but Mikhail gestured for them to wait. Valara continued, heedless of the danger. The noble houses were corrupt, yes. Their rule was crumbling under the weight of tradition and inaction. But in seeking to replace them, I invited a more subtle tyranny. Earth does not conquer with fleets and armies alone. They conquer with contracts and cooperation with aid that comes at a price measured in sovereignty. Duchess Valara. Mikhail interrupted his patience, evidently exhausted. "While your perspective is appreciated, the time for speeches has passed. The parliamentary session will now—" "There is a reason," Valara said, again louder this time, "never to hire human mercenaries. They do not serve causes. They create them. They do not preserve civilizations. They assimilate them. And they never, ever leave." Security forces moved to escort her from the chamber, but Valara had said what she came to say. As they led her away, she caught my eye and nodded slightly. I understood. These words, this warning, had to survive. History demanded it. I completed my official chronicle of Solara's liberation. Within the month, a sanitized account that praised Earth's guidance and Solara's willing embrace of progressive governance. But I also maintained private journals, hidden records that told the true story of Valara's ambition and its consequences. The opportunity to leave came during the Festival of New Beginnings, a holiday invented by the provisional government to celebrate Solara's integration into Earth's colonial network. Trade ships crowded the spaceport, and in the confusion of celebration, one more passenger seeking passage off-world attracted little attention. I departed Solaris aboard a freight hauler, bound for the Rim territories, my official chronicles safely filed in the parliamentary archives, and my secret history hidden in my personal effects. As the ship lifted through Solara's crystalline atmosphere, I watched the capital city shrink below me, its ancient spires now crowned with Earth's transmission arrays. Duchess Valara had vanished a week before my departure. Some said she had been relocated to a comfortable exile on one of Earth's colony worlds. Others whispered that she had escaped off-world, fleeing to the free systems beyond Earth's influence. I prefer to believe the latter, though I know the truth matters less than the lesson her story teaches. Years have passed since the events I've described. Earth's influence in the galaxy has continued to expand, always through cooperation and mutual benefit, always with contracts that favor the one party who truly understands their implications. The Solaran Parliament dutifully passes legislation drafted in Earth's bureaus, and the people have grown accustomed to their new freedoms. The freedom to choose between approved options, the freedom to prosper within designated parameters, the freedom to remain ignorant of the price their world has paid. I have shared this account with scholars and historians across the free systems, hoping that others might recognize the pattern before it's too late for their own worlds. The response has been mixed. Some appreciate the warning. Others dismiss it as the rambling of a bitter exile, obsessed with a past that cannot be changed. But I persist in my mission because I remember Valara's final words. The lesson learned too late: never hire human mercenaries, for they serve no master but opportunity itself. They are not soldiers who fight and leave. They are gardeners who cultivate dependence, pruning away resistance until only compliance remains. The galaxy is vast, and many civilizations believe themselves too strong, too clever, too necessary to fall victim to such subtle conquest. But I have seen how quickly strength becomes weakness when it depends on outside support, how cleverness fails when facing superior cunning, and how necessity can be manufactured by those who control the resources upon which you've learned to depend. This is why I write, why I remember, why I continue to speak Valara's truth to any who will listen. Because somewhere in the galaxy, perhaps even now, another ruler looks upon their crumbling order and considers hiring Earth's mercenaries to achieve what their own forces cannot. And perhaps if the stories reach them in time, they will remember Solara's fate and choose a different path. The debt humanity demands is not paid in gold, or minerals, or territory. It is paid in freedom itself, extracted one concession at a time, until nothing remains but the illusion of self-governance and the reality of absolute dependence. This is the true price of human assistance, a cost that compounds with interest until the principal can never be repaid. I close these chronicles with a hope and a warning. The hope is that civilizations yet free will learn from Solara's example and guard their independence as the precious and fragile thing it is. The warning is simple and eternal. There is always a reason never to hire human mercenaries, and that reason is written in the stars and the ashes of worlds that thought themselves too wise to fall. In the end, Duchess Valara achieved her goal of transforming Solara. She broke the old order, shattered the noble house's grip on power, and brought change to a world that had resisted it for centuries. But the change she wrought was not her own vision made manifest. It was humanity's vision carefully engineered and patiently implemented through her ambition and her pride. The greatest tragedy of Solara is not that it fell to Earth's dominion, but that it did so willingly, eagerly believing itself the architect of its own destiny, even as it handed control to those who had planned its submission from the first moment of contact. Let this record stand as testament to the price of ambition, untempered by wisdom of strength, sought from those who profit from weakness of bargains, made with entities whose true goals remain hidden until the moment of collection. Let it stand as a warning to any who might consider the path Valara chose, and as a reminder that freedom once surrendered is seldom reclaimed. Solon, former chronicler to the Duchy of Solara, records these words in exile in the year 2378 of the Galactic Standard Calendar, 4 years after the events described herein. May those who read this account learn from our failure and guard well their independence, for it is a treasure more precious than all the riches Earth might offer in exchange. The stars remember what we choose to forget, and in their silent witness lies our only hope for redemption. Remember Solara. Remember Valara. Remember the reason never to hire human mercenaries for that reason may be the only thing standing between your world and a freedom that exists only in name.